Going.
Chair.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. Well, we have two firsts tonight. Chad's first meeting. And my first attempt at trying to run the meetings. It could be a little bumpy, but I'm sure we'll be able to land in place. I'm sure we'll get it. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda we had, does everybody have the agenda? Everybody get a copy of the agenda? Yeah.
Actually, I did not. Is there an extra?
Usually they have copies of it.
I don't know if
I can share with Jan.
That's right here.
This will be in. Oh, that's okay.
That's fine.
Okay.
Fair bones.
Okay, the first thing we have is to approve the minutes of the January 17th meeting. So, anybody approve the minutes? Did anybody look at the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Okay. And I didn't look at it. So.
Yeah, no, I don't. So I have to leave at 8, just.
Same, perfect. Excellent. Okay, 3 minutes. Okay, number 2 on the agenda, if I can find it, is the discussion of gas leak blowers. There she is. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
How are you?
Oh, that's sure. Go ahead. That's good, maybe.
Feel free to move wherever, Dawn.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so the discussion of gas leak blowers, was that Jean, you and Dawn?
Yeah.
An update on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Dawn and I have met a couple, I guess 3 times, and we had email exchange, et cetera. And Rob Cooper met with us once. So this is just some of the things we've done thus far. We started gathering some information from other municipalities, such as Maplewood, New Jersey, et cetera, et cetera. We've looked at the Penn Environment Report. We're over 400 cities throughout the state. Our municipalities are looking at bans or limitations to gas-powered leaf blowers. We've also been cognizant of the fact that there are some municipalities where citizens are bringing suit against their the ordinances, and so we know that it's not always an easy road. So we've also started to identify all the landscaping firms in the borough. We've done some informal surveying of neighbors to see, what kind of equipment they're using, what they're feeling about landscaping companies as well as their own practices. We've started to identify some groups that can become friends of this initiative. As you know, we reached out to Jeff Alden and Eldon. Yeah, thank you, Eldon. And he came to the last meeting or a couple of times ago.
He was here last, I think it was last meeting.
Yeah, and
I remember seeing him.
he's wanting to have a table at Earth Day and some things like that.
Right.
And then, and most importantly, and Miriam, thank you for giving us this. We looked at and not word by word memorize it. We've just begun to really look at Lower Merion Township's what they call the options for restrictions of bans on gas-powered leaf blowers, the draft memo that they made to their EAC, the township's EAC. So our preliminary discussions we were pleased to see this because our preliminary discussions kind of mirrored this document. And certainly as we go forward, we're hoping that anything that the borough does decide to do, EAC does decide to recommend that it does either replicate or in large measure parallel with what's done in the township. It's only logical that should happen. So we decided that, again, this is all preliminary, but we decided that one, we would make the recommendations would be in kind of 4 categories. That we would look at, of course, policy, regulation, and ordinance. We would look at education. We would then look for incentives to change, and then public relations. Some of these things will overlap, of course. So regarding the first thing, policy or code and ordinance, we were interested to see that the first duty of EAC, quote, I'm quoting, identifies threats to environment and ecosystem that support healthy lives, human and plant and animals. So I think
Of any EAC, like on the state.
yeah. Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's
Or no, I'm
No, it's
asking.
ours.
Our EAC.
That's the number one duty.
Okay, in
As
our
it-
bylaws or
as-
whatever.
yeah,
they're called.
as it's on the Norris website.
Great.
Again, we would really like to look at what Lower Marion Township has done in this regards. They've made a suite of recommendations, which we like that idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a
The
second.
recommendations from the LMEAC.
This document was designed or written by Nancy, I believe Nancy Winkler. Also, what do we currently have on the books? You know, do we have noise ordinances? What is out there as far as Narberth is concerned?
What related ordinances?
Yeah, that
I mean, that's a research project, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
There's definitely.
We do have,
Yeah.
noise ordinances, but they don't really address short-term impact.
okay.
This is normally, under 30 minutes.
In any one location.
Correct, and ours are mostly time and amplitude related, but it's more like standard ones you find in any municipality.
Yeah,
People with loud music and parties.
right.
But like at night.
Correct.
Yeah.
Also, I think our morning as well, contractors and such, there's a certain time in the morning.
Yeah.
8 o'clock to
Yeah.
7:30 typically, yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be one thing that we would investigate. Also, what are some of the other best practices around us, like not just Lower Marion, but as far as ordinance development, et cetera, et cetera. And then, so as I said, we could see ourselves making some kind of final recommendations that would be a suite of different options that EAC could take as far as banning, partial banning, time of year, limiting, whatever language that we come up with. So the second piece is education, of course. There has been a movement, and Dawn is really succinct in talking about this. There's a movement away from the pristine lawn philosophy, that every leaf has to be blown off, every, graded grass has to be trimmed. So I think we might be right for making this move. The education would be, again, outlining risks to environment and to the users, the risks to especially the landscape workers, the risk of the vibrations, certainly the pollution, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and the ears.
And the noise pollution, of course. We'd be curious to know and kind of use this as a jumping off point. What are the commercial landscapers' current practices and future plans? And I know that Jeff has some information about that. And again, he's really served as a good model. It's really wonderful that we can say that, Narberth is moved forward with this. Again, collaborating with friends groups such as the Tree Commission, NICE, Garden Club to really develop an education. And then the next area would be incentives and grant making. We know Dawn's done some research on grants that are available for people, for groups that might be interested. We just started. This is all just this things that
Lower Marion is doing that too, and I think a lot of the lawn care organizations that work in are also work in Lower Marion, so it will be.
Yeah. What are some of the equipment buyback programs that there are out there? We know that there are issues of costs, especially related to to battery life, et cetera, et cetera. So, what are kind of the incentives for helping people with all this stuff? And then lastly, but also just as important would be a marketing campaign. How do we let people know about this? How do we, that's part of the education, but, what is it, besides Earth Day and demonstrations that might give, do you know posters, leaf to leaf campaign? There are all kinds of different strategies that we could explore and suggest. And then it's just the two of us working on this, so we would like to know, suggestions for a work group or a little study group. I mean, we would like an intern maybe to help with this. So if any suggestions on who we might include in our little group, we could say we'd be dictators and just, give you just us, and that's not how we operate. So
do you want our suggestions now, or do you have, or Sure. And then also a timeline. We'd be interested in knowing what a timeline would be. We thought initially we maybe would try to get something for April, but I don't know how realistic that is. So,
Great.
So
we have other municipalities in the area that have gone to electric, like Narberth has. Jeff was telling us about how they've gone to electric equipment for the borough.
the government?
County hasn't fully, I think they're in process, and they kind of said, we can't legislate this until we're doing it, but I don't know about other counties.
that would be part of the research that we do.
Right. Just because I listened to it, and then WHYY did a series of interviews and then an actual podcast on this issue.
Oh.
And I was stunned by the fact that a lot of the private companies that do the work have no problem with adopting new equipment. And they just see it as a trend anyways. So I could get the reference for that. It's interesting to hear. There are fewer barriers than I thought there were.
I'm shocked. Yeah.
And I just wanted to know if we have a street sweeper, and we were talking about the lawns. Ours case in point is that we still have leaves on our lawn, but if there's an incentive to, we bag all our leaves. And I'm wondering if some communities, if they have a little more say, it's more difficult than a Narberth. So you have a certain time when you put your leaves out and they have to be raked to the curb. And you can't blow them to the curb, and you can't, create this perfect landscape. And that could be a thing where the borough might have a day or a week or 2 weeks where they collect.
The week.
Yeah, and we get rid of this having a perfect golf lawn mentality. Because I know and I understand there's some benefits as well, because the leaves will continue to blow into the street and creates a wet environment. It gets into the gutters, et cetera. It creates some issues. But the WHYY podcast is very interesting.
I just Googled it, and I found, I'm putting it into the minutes, which I'll kind of reshare. I'll just make sure everyone has.
So was that in the summer? Was it?
There was, there was actually two. One was October of 2023, and then the other one was November of 2022. And then, there's actually several, it's like Radio Times, had one in 2022, and I just got the link to that one. And then there were two, articles / I guess, it looks to me like this is the same one. That was like a WHYY kind of article / audio.
So in this boost the curve scenario, who then is responsible? Is that a borough thing, or is that something through waste management? I actually did this for Radnor, where I grew up. They've been doing it like that for, I did as a teenager.
Like Hereford Township.
And they would come through, and the trash trucks would be converted with I forget how they did it, and then we were front end loader, drop them in and take them all off the Skunk Hollow, and they had these massive dumps, and then that turned to mulch, and then they turned around, and that was, but it was a pretty big operation.
It is, and they have larger lawns and they also have wider streets.
Yeah,
And, it's not the same thing, you know, we have cars parked everywhere.
And so also the one thing you have to keep in mind is we just renegotiated the waste removal.
Correct,
Right.
Which
Well, I mean,
we've talked about.
in the
that.
longer term, like Jeff has said, separate, I don't think he reiterated it last time we talked to him. He's talked about how he would like to, with grant money, get an electric vehicle that could collect some types of things, probably not trash, maybe, probably not food scraps, but he would like to be able for Norbert to deal with the yard waste, because yard waste, including the leaves, could go to the Lower Marion facility, which cannot handle, the issue with the kitchen scraps,
It's
because
not
they
the right
can't,
way.
they're not set up for that. But they are, our yard waste already goes,
Mhm.
you know, so he, like his dream, and we had this kind of on the agenda, like loosely, I don't know, 2 years ago or something, like, oh, there's a grant program we could apply for that could, you know, that, you know, where a municipality, what they could, one of the things they could do is, buy like an electric utility vehicle that could, you know, would be the right size for Norbert to do that kind of thing.
Right.
I think that's like the long term, you know.
That's, yeah.
And yeah,
Short term and long term.
yeah, I mean, I mean, I think it kind of depends what parts you want to start, like in terms, you know, with like a multi-pronged approach. I mean, I think certainly like, you know, you would hope that there would be some people who are part of the garden club who
I think
want to take
the
action.
Conservancy already said it would step up its Leave the Lead campaigns, and that you can, like maybe for our birthday, if you get, then there's the whole education about Leave the Leaves, because I think some people think like you just don't leave, you just leave them there, but there's different ways you can use them in your yard for compost or for, there's all different kinds of ways to do, so the leaves stay and bugs can be in them, and it's helpful for the soil and the pollinators.
That's a whole.
They quote like the German bug Armageddon quote in this thing. Just saying like it's really important for the environment that we have insects, and that part of
Yes.
the insect problem is that we have green pristine lawns. But so the
Yeah.
Conservancy and other organizations could start with their Leave the Leave education, like this fall, even if it takes like 3 years to get the legislation going and 20 years to get the electrical vehicle, you know, that I think there's like, we could still make little small inroads.
Because I think that's also, I mean, we've had all kinds of ideas in the past about, in terms of collaborating, and I think that you've already made like many great steps towards it. I mean, the Civic Association and the Girl Scouts. This to me sounds like a really Girl Scout friendly issue, kind of like the plastic bags was. You know, the Girl Scouts are like, Daddy, don't have any love leaves. You know, because a lot of it is, you know, there's the landscaper component, but then even Rob is like shade tree, like shade tree commission, sustainability platform, like totally on board. But then in the fall, he's like, what are you going to do with the leaves? And I was like, well, leave the leaves. And he was like, ah! You know, so I think like,
Yeah.
you know, understanding there's multiple ways to leave leaves. How are we going to leave leaves? What do we do? You know, I think that part of it is, we've tried, a couple times we've gotten high school kids to like participate, I guess through the environmental club. I think I still have the email address. You can like join the Instagram of the Lower Marion High School Environmental Club.
Exactly.
Become a follower, and then you can like, I tried messaging them before, being like, hey, you know, and they haven't replied. So I think probably, and I've also emailed them. And I didn't want to be like, I'm one of your members' moms. You know, so I just was like, my name is such a.
I can connect you.
Yeah.
I'm talking to them about it.
Okay, yeah, I think it's probably like.
It's difficult.
It's going, you gotta go in person and like
Yes.
kind of capture the imagination.
And you're cool.
And
You're
yeah.
cool. You'll be perfect.
Well, Dawn could be yeah.
Yeah. Same.
But I think it takes like, you know, they kind of rally around the thing and they're, you know, all over the place and, you know, you just have to like you have to get them at the right time when they're kind of like, what should we be working on next? Or you can get a few, and, you know, and there's also build on, do you know, like, yeah.
Yeah, and there are also initiatives for people to, you know, to have less lawn, actually more
Yeah,
natural areas, more gardens, more.
Yeah, we struggle with that as well.
grass. It goes hand in hand with what you're saying, so I think for the educational piece, educate people when you say legalese, what does that really mean?
How about no mow Monday, more Mays, no mow Mays.
What's that?
Don't mow in May. In other words, allow, again, bugs, the bees, et cetera. That would be really radical.
But I think the whole, no phone, what is it, no phone February?
I didn't know that one. I heard no, man.
So I
Yeah,
have.
the lawns are shaking, so we better get this next year.
I got you.
See, you know, there, well, I was thinking Shannon had a comment here about, a factor here is you look up and down the street and, you know, everybody looks at each other's maps. And they're pristine, like you said, you can't find a leaf. The rabbits are scurrying for material for the nests. And, once you break that cycle and you have a few lawns and it works. And we have clay soil, and it's not an easy thing to do to have more humus piled on top of a wet substance on top of clay, which promotes rot. But you know, it's a kind of the herd mentality thing that once you break the block and you have a few lawns that are doing that, people break the block. That's right. You won't capture everybody, but capture enough. And the discussion will begin.
Kimberly shift. I mean, I think, you know, I just think like the fact that like the whole insect apocalypse thing, which is like, you know, hard to fathom. You know, it's like everyone's kind of used to hearing about climate change now, but I don't know that they're really used to hearing about it. It's like, there's so many conversations, you know, it's like the repetition needs to happen. So I think some issues are not so much about the public education, but I think like in this case, you know, the aesthetic and just like, you know, like if I sit down with Robin and I'm like, look at this article, scientists, did you know that like last week, 1,000 scientists said, oh my God, we're all gonna die because the insects are like, you know, disappearing. He would be like, oh, you know, I mean, it would like grab his attention the way climate change did, you know, maybe 10, 15 years ago. So I think like, you know, like both deep and broad, it's, you know, and then I guess the other thing I was thinking with the landscapers is like maybe kind of dividing, thinking about them in different categories. It's just my guess, and I don't know, like, you know, when I say like the friels or, you know, like these like really big ones, they have economy of scale, they're rich, somebody's rich who's part of, you know, I don't know, the owner or something, versus like, you know, a mom and pop one where, you know, they may be immigrants and they're like, you know, really like, you know, it's like not, they don't have excess money at all, you know, in there. And I feel like the ones that have institutional contracts, you know, the big ones would be the place to start, you know, and then, and meanwhile think about like how to find kind of subsidizing the smaller ones. Because we had a guy who was like doing work next door to us just the other day, and he saw that I had left the leaves, and we were talking to him about like, you know, what, you know, just the property line, and He's like, oh, I see you left the leaves, huh? And he's like, yeah, I know a lot of women leave the leaves for the animals. You know, like he had heard, like, you know, like limiting English, you know, and he's like, clearly this is, you know, lessening some of his business because he's not, you know,
Yeah.
you know, so it's a whole thing that I think we can focus on, like the big guys first.
Yeah.
Well, you said something that made me think, you said, oh, a lot of the women, right?
Yep.
So my wife was a part of, she's no longer a part of it, I don't think she's super active, but there's a Narberth women's
Yes.
group, right?
Yeah.
I think they meet over.
I was in and I'm no longer active, and I thought of them as a really great place.
That's where we first learned about Mother Compost. They invited them in, because they're always looking for speakers and program, and Mother Compost came in and did their spiel and talked about the research, and they had statistics to cite, and then they also did their pitch, and we started doing it, and then our neighbors started doing it, and then our friends started doing it, and that's like you're talking about, it's this sort of snowball effect, and that is a influential group in this little world.
No, I've often thought of it because it draws people together who aren't already like, you know, it's a social club.
Yeah.
And so it has people of all different political perspectives.
Yeah.
The other thing now you're saying that is, I had talked to, like Narberth Perez is one of the bigger churches, and I had Corinna Bowser, who's our neighbor, she's like, I don't know, she's just active, you know, in the church, she's in art, and we had talked on a few occasions about like getting, I mean, that church is particularly conservative, I think, on the political spectrum, so there are other churches that are less so, but I think, you know, she was like climate change, at least a couple of years ago, she was like, oh God, you know, we're really split. I don't know, you know, like if I can talk about like saving the church money by getting solar panels, like that might work to kind of bridge the political polarization that there is in the church. But I'm wondering, this is not a politicized issue. So I do think like, certainly at Narberth Trez, I think Corinne might be, unless she's like suddenly gotten busy, she wanted to do some sustainability stuff, but she was kind of stuck on like how politicized climate change was as an issue, like as a framing.
What is it that she does there?
She's just like volunteering. I don't know. Maybe she's like on the
work.
She's on
no. She's a what's that?
she's very active parishioner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you in Narberth Trez too?
Only one of my kids were in nursery school.
Right.
A lot of nervous sense the kids to know.
Have we met all of our friends?
But,
Yeah.
her friend is great, so she's very, updated.
Could I ask, so is this a general approach? You know, does it make sense? And
Yeah, I think the way you're approaching is wonderful. I think you're taking all the right steps, and if you need additional resources, just let us know.
Well, I think we have this email list that we think we've gotten back up and running.
Are you still getting those emails?
I got one
Don't
the
get
other
it.
day that was like, I've gotten a few here and there. It would be wonderful. Chat.
Sure.
We have an email list that we started years ago before there was even an EAC. Yeah, so I don't know, 5 years ago. It's just like a Google Groups, and it's just like people who are interested in sustainability, waters and years. So it's kind of like
the can, is that what it is?
Yeah.
That's really good for this.
So we just got to get you on, like basically no one is like, I sent out a few messages. I don't know, we've sent it like one or two in a year, we just haven't had time to like kind of keep it going. But every once in a while we get someone who's like, hey, I want to be on your email list,
Right.
or, or they ask like, hey, I have an electric vehicle, how do I work my charge at, or, but if someone was a keeper of the list and could actually like coordinate, I feel certain we could get a few more volunteers if you sent out a few messages and be like, hey, this is a project, like, we would love people to help do X, Y, and Z, or other, just like, kind of make a call for straightforward help.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We could get these email addresses, we could forward them over, say if you're interested in helping out, there's a project, a
Or
community
just
project
we
taking
could put
place.
you on, like, we can all be keepers of the list, but maybe, one, I don't know what you want to do, but like, the three of us had like sat down and we kind of like, okay, here's the password, and here's the access, all right, and then we're like, okay, who's gonna like stay on top of it? And we're like,
So when you say stay on top of it, I'm certainly with that. What do you mean? Is there stuff that we try to post?
Well, that's kind of the tricky thing, because we're not really putting them on anything.
well, I mean, we
We should be
should
doing
be,
some sort of
yeah. So,
Database.
basically,
What's the name of this?
I guess it's a can, let me look.
Yeah, I think it's the can list.
Can mailing list,
That was one. I
it's
know.
climate, NARS. Look, I just got an email like in the last few days from someone wanting
Climate
to,
action.
Yeah, I think we're all getting the same ones.
I think so, yeah, because now we're all like the administrators, yeah. Yeah, when did it just come in? It was in the last like week or so, right? I mean, did you see that, Lee? Did you see
The
that?
last one that came in,
Yeah.
just
like,
in the
a guy
last
did
week or
it like
so.
2 in a row because he probably didn't get like a confirmation message saying what he got.
It was, they were,
Yeah. So, I mean,
okay, well, let's, yeah.
I mean, yeah, in terms of like replying so that someone can get on the list, that's one thing in terms of managing. The other thing is like sending out updates, and like, trying to get people involved is another thing. And then here we have something where it's a very obvious way, for someone to be involved, and it's, it's less political than EV chargers, and it's a good, I think it's a winning thing to get.
I think you're approaching it the right way, because
Yeah.
we're different perspectives, and again, just reach out to me or any of us here if you want any assist or questions or guidance on that, but you feel like you're making progress. I mean, it sounds like you're making progress.
You want people to like be there and kind of jump in. I think the can list would be good. I think also,
I'm sorry, when you say can list? No, that's okay. I need
We're gonna have to list the acronyms.
Yeah.
I need to learn
Yeah.
all the
It's a climate action NARS and NEARS.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't know if you.
Quaker schools love acronyms, so I will
Yeah,
lean
good catch.
into this no
Wow.
If you say can, you still say can on the weekly emails.
I know, but
Is
it's
that
not.
Amy's, is that Amy's?
No, it's.
Oh, yeah. That one I.
Who's this?
I don't know who's involved at all. I mean, I used to be, so.
No, I mean, it's not, it just
It's
is.
in that weekly email, is it the same thing?
It's the same every week.
Yeah, I think
it's
it's
the
just probably the
same.
last one that Amy Pekowski filled in.
Okay, and they're just, and they
I remember.
just.
I think they just like reprint it,
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's basically, I think we're like, you two are can.
Anybody like to be can?
That's fine, that's good.
And we can all, I mean, I think it predates the EAC.
Yeah.
So therefore we were all can
Yes.
members,
Yes.
and then we were like, oh, well, I guess I'm in government now.
Right, so,
Yeah,
we should probably move on.
Okay, sure.
Like you said, but it sounds great. I mean,
Thank you.
keep out and just reach out to any of us.
All right. Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Sounds awesome.
and just as, yeah, you can reach out to us and just be like, hey, can you get us to become administrators for the can list, and we can just do that.
Okay.
Okay, move on the agenda. Let's skip one. Let's go to the CCA updates. Any updates on the CEA? Marion, community choice
Yeah.
community choice aggregation. CCA. Marion's kind of taking the lead on this.
Yeah, so this is, did anyone explain to you what this is? The community choice aggregation?
Yes, I actually had a chance to sit down with Joe, maybe it was Saturday, and he kind of brain dumped a lot of this, so
Okay,
some of it sunk in, the rest
Sure.
of it takes some time, but we did talk a little.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think meetings.
Since last time, hasn't it?
Yeah, since last time we met, I think there was one meeting. It's basically, we're at the point now where we're trying to really over the various members of the Pennsylvania Public Utility Commission and like their support staff to be like, yeah, this is good, Pico, we give our blessing, even though they don't technically need their blessing to do it. So I may have, now I can't remember if it was, in the minutes last time. Now I can't remember, but, yeah, I think maybe I had one more meeting since our last EAC meeting, and it was just a lawyer and, a guy who's like consumer protection. And so the lawyer was kind of like, I don't know, it's very, like sociologically, it's very interesting because it's like their mandate has been just like protect people from power shutoffs and price increases. And they have not had a mandate when people are, hey, we care about our air, water, but we're consumers at the same time, it's like we have a price and we have so the guy who we talked to, like the Office of Consumer Protection, was like, so each person we talk to, we're just trying to get a critical mass of them to be like, okay, Nico, just let them do it without giving them a hassle. And so I don't know at what point we're gonna be there, but now we've had one Zoom meeting like that, and I'm just looking at, we have some upcoming meetings in February, I think they're all virtual. And so John McKinstry, who was a retired, he was a retired lawyer, he worked in Friends schools too. Yeah. But so he's kind of like the EAC from Swarthmore that signed the MOU. He and I are kind of, we're kind of like the emissary. I mean, anyone else who wants to, but basically to try to just attend all of these meetings as we can with these various people related to the Public Utility Commission and just represent the consumers and the community. So it looks like in the next month, they're trying to schedule 3 or 4 with these various commissioners and just kind of, help them see. The main question for them is always like, wait, do you represent a company that is trying to make money through this? Like, no, we are residents. We want this as consumers. So, what's that?
That's the operative word.
Yes, yeah, as a consumer and a community resident and a Pennsylvanian, yeah, so they just don't have, I guess the last thing I would say that maybe a repeat from last time is just, they've never had this as like a frame of reference. They've had cases where companies came and said, we want to do community choice aggregation as part of our business model, and they're like, no, because it doesn't give the consumer no choice if they have to opt out. And now we're saying, yes, please allow us to set it up so that people have to opt out because they're not, no one opted, very few people opt in to renewable energy because they still know about it. And since you made your prior decisions saying that an opt-out program is like bad for the consumer, there have been the PA State Constitution was amended to say that environment is important. There have been communities that have like pushed, some kind of law, Commonwealth law, in a direction that has shown that people have a firm right to clean air, water, and future resources, and that it's the state government's duty to protect that. So that all has like transpired since all these guys on the Public Utility Commission kind of thought through what their role was, like 20 to 15 years ago. So anyway, that's the where we're going.
Good job. Okay. To move along here, EV charger updates. I took a stab at this actually, put together a little PowerPoint. It should be shared there.
And where?
Great point.
Is it in your personal drive?
Folder, a subfolder, just called EV. I feel like Joe shared that.
Yeah, he did, and I added a folder to that. You know what Joe sent out to us with the link with all the different files? I had added a file to that. Here, if you want, this is what I have. You guys can share that so you can take a look at that.
Actually, can we take this?
Yeah.
So who is this for, Lee?
So what I had done, they were, the council was asking us for a report
Oh,
by April, right, of all the
Oh,
data.
right, yeah.
So, Joe shared the raw data with me. So I just gone through and tried to put something together here, and I don't know if anybody has access, you have access to it there. Do you see it by any chance, Miriam?
Here, no, I think, let me bring it around and see you can see.
Oh, thank you.
This is an idea of what I thought. Once again, they want it by April, so this is what I took a shot at this.
Yeah.
You guys have it?
Yep.
It's the Narberth EV charger report 2023.
Yep.
This is in meeting materials, you said?
It should have been in there with all the other ones that Joe had sent over. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Again, we're in Google Docs, so you
Project.
It's under project.
Project, okay.
EV chargers,
Okay. And then,
and then it's a PowerPoint.
know.
oh, okay, EV charger, okay, got it.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it was actually
No, really, I'm okay. I
It wasn't?
didn't wanna change mine.
good. Okay, so this is what I just put together quickly. We don't have this. I did this in PowerPoint, and so when you put it back into Google, it kind of messes it up a little bit, the formatting and such. But you can see the cover page. I just table of
Yeah.
contents. Executive summary, what we're doing,
Okay.
we're looking at the flow, the data that Flow gave us for the EV chargers for the calendar year 2023, 4 locations. This is on page 3, South Essex Post Office, downtown Essex Municipal 2. Keep going, 4. So here's some of the key statistics on page 4. Total number of sessions, total usage, average usage per session, cost, average cost. Total number of users, there are 246 users total. 110 with repeat users, and 35 of those users had more than 10 sessions.
Unique, users, is this unique users or is this total?
Well, that was total users. That was total
Okay.
use. I guess it's better to say total users,
Gotcha.
let's say. And then there were of the 246 uses, there were 110 users. Let's put it that way. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just didn't go down.
That's all right. And then of that, there were 35 that had more than 10 sessions. So the kind of repeat folks. And locations ranked by sessions. You can see downtown Essex had the most, municipal lot, post office, South Essex. And then the charges by network, what networks we use, the Flow network, the people paying for it, our charge point, or this Flow Canada. Okay, so that's kind of the key statistics.
And the thing to remember, I don't know where you went, but it's like, some of these were activated in July, others were
Right, that's,
in use the whole year,
Yeah.
others were activated July, and I think one, I don't know, maybe.
yeah. And now we get into this thing where it says, okay, so here's the session report for all locations.
Mhm.
So you can see we have all by month,
Yeah.
January through December, you have the number of
Mhm.
the count, number of uses, and then the total sum of the usage of the kilowatt hours.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's for all of the locations. Okay, which is good to see. It's trending upward towards the end of the year. It was trending upward, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, some of them were installed, like here, I think this big spike in July.
Wasn't there an outage we were talking about? One of them?
I'm just looking at the spread. Yeah, I'm just.
It was all messed up this past summer, like we had to, there were like serial numbers that were listed in the app, on the map differently, and so Rob and Joe and I like spent quite a few hours with Flow, because Samantha had left like right as it was getting installed, and so there was like mix up, so it you know, I think, anyway, that's what, it wasn't even clear, like, there were some that were saying like, oh, it was being charged in North Essex, but actually it was by the movie theater because it was listed wrong in the app. But, you know, now it's all squared away, but I think it's just as like since
I have a question.
July, August.
Where's downtown Essex? Is that, they call it downtown Essex?
Isn't that like right in front of the dental?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
So the next to
Well, what's the post office?
movie theater.
that's North Narberth,
Okay,
yeah.
But North Essex isn't in this data.
Mhm.
okay.
But then there's North Essex curbside, which is by a condo building.
Across the street from.
Premier
So the
Hall.
data from 23 only have these 4 locations.
Yeah, because the one, again, like
Okay.
each
So
charger is its
that's all
own
we-
story, like when it was turned on, and what it was called at first.
So essentially, I just went through, here's a session report for all locations, 1,500 sessions and 29,000 kilowatts. And then I just broke it down by each one, post office. You can see I'm at the post office. how many at downtown Essex, municipal lot, and then the 2 additional new ones at municipal lot that just came on. Okay. And South Essex. And then the charge by network, how many would flow, how many would charge point, how many would flow Canada. Okay.
Yeah,
So that's what I was able to pull off of the
looks
spreadsheet we
good.
had. So I don't know how much verbiage we want to add around this.
Well,
You know, I was looking at some other reports of data that they were pulling, and they don't necessarily have any data. So,
This is short term, you got to let it run.
yeah, I mean, it's
For
just,
a while.
you know,
So you have at least 6 months or a year. Let's get to the year.
right, so for 2023, it's,
Yeah.
you know, it's,
4 seasons, all the variants.
I mean, it's the reason why the data, and I think it looks great. I mean, thank you so much for doing this. It's kind of like to just have the data is one thing, and then the other has to do with, we've been charged with, because it's a pilot program, with creating the criteria by which there would be a formal process for the citing of, like, either changing any of the locations of the current ones or the putting in new ones.
right,
And so it's our neighbors on Marion Ave who are really, really want that charger not near them. And then the bunch of neighbors who really want it right there because yeah. So we've been, part of it is that we've been tasked as the AC to be like, both to kind of, make sense of the data and then also make recommendations about how the pilot in the last meeting last week, the borough council decided, yes, we will indeed turn on the one on Marion Avenue. We will not delay that anymore. They discussed a year at that meeting as being like, okay, the pilot program, they'll all go for a year and then we'll look at the data and we'll consider, criteria, and the EAC will make recommendations about, what criteria, how they should use the
so
data.
remember, these 4, that are, it's in the data for 23.
Yeah,
The pilot program was South Essex and downtown Essex, or post op,
I mean,
the pilot-
technically it's all,
You know,
I
because
see
we
what you're
had,
saying.
the ones
What were
in
the
municipal
pilot?
lot were there a while ago.
Yeah, the pilot.
The pilot's definitely South
Well, they
Essex,
added
right?
they added 2 additional ones to municipal law. My understanding was that technically the pilot program includes, North Essex by you, Marion Ave by us, South Essex by the train station, and the post office, and one of the ones by the borough. So I think that's 5 sets.
so all of those in Acme are not in Narber. Okay.
Yeah.
So of these 4 then that are in the 23 data, it's just South Essex and post office or pilot program?
Well, what does it say here?
They call it they call it downtown Essex.
Downtown Essex is not in the pilot.
Right.
program. Yeah.
And are the 2 new ones in the municipal lot?
I think they are just because, I think that it was like Pico and Samantha with support from council and other people were like, yeah, we're going to put in chargers wherever people need them, with the idea being that it was, like they would put as many in the residential area as they could. And then when there was opposition from some quarters to that, I think that's when they were like, well, screw it, we'll just put another one in the borough lot. So I think technically it's part of the pilot, because it's the 2, there's 2 that get used regularly by the borough vehicles. That was the old, that old one that was pre-pilot, that we got with a different set of funds. Yeah. But I'm kind of, Rob, I don't know, like other people, I shouldn't.
Yeah, the 104 ones were the old municipal lot, and the 202 ones must be the pilot program.
So, quick question. and sorry to belabor this because you
No, no,
all like know all of this stuff, I'm sure really well, but coming into this new as a lay person, it looks very well documented, right? And I like these dashboards, but who is the audience and how are people supposed to make sense of, like, you talked about what else should accompany this. Maybe I heard you wrong, I didn't hear you correctly, but I'm just curious, because it feels like for somebody that's just looking at this for the first time, there's no context.
Yeah.
This looks awesome, somebody definitely put a lot of work into this, right? But it's, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Is that kind of the job, or one of the jobs of this group is to help to articulate and communicate to a broader audience what that means?
Right, so I think you could say that one audience is just the borough
It's the
council
borough.
itself, like the council members, but then there's the separate, which requires many more words, which is
Yeah.
like the public.
Right.
Yeah.
I got you, okay.
And they're different complexity of the messages.
Sure.
So,
Sure. That makes sense, okay.
Yeah.
And basically, what Joe is telling me is that public health and safety would like our report on the EV charger usage and recommendations by April.
Mhm.
So this is a start to that.
Yeah, I think recommendations, not on, just on the criteria by which they could evaluate
Right.
the current sites and potentially change or add.
So it's just kind of a breakdown of the data we have. That's all. And then we need to add to it recommendations and those sorts of things.
Right, and maybe like certainly, I think to what Chad is saying, you can have like a couple slides that the council can just skip over because they know the history, but it's like, there's all kinds of stuff for the public.
Right.
That we could add, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the audience for this is basically public health and safety.
Got it, so they're gonna look at this and understand how to.
Try to see what happened.
Right.
We've had this, what happened.
Yeah, I mean, they might be like, wait, is this users? Is this number of hours? They'd have those kind of questions.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
So that's all. It's just a start of taking the actual data, Excel spreadsheet, putting it down on paper.
Got it, okay.
And then we need the fluff that goes around recommendations and the other wording or
Right.
those sorts of things that go around it.
have we had any feedback from residents on, gee, we would like one in our neighborhood versus people that complain? And, we took it as a vote, I think, because we were on, CBS or whatever, the meeting and the snippets and
Yep.
it was not our greatest PR moment, but, a lot of it also is introducing something.
Oh, yeah.
And the CV's data and the way that we can represent it either on websites or in the public at events, or also make it digestible for the average person. We're getting better every day, like a slogan. We're gonna be better every day. That's all really people want. Everybody has 50 different stressors right now. And we're just trying to show that things are getting better every day. And these are wonderful data. And we've all seen data sets that just look atrocious. But this really shows it's conjecture, but improved awareness. And I know by how many times I walk my dog by various meters, that they're in use in the evenings, and whereas before they were just poles standing and waiting for users.
Lights tied to them and stuff.
Yeah, right. So this is great. There's so much work into it, so I appreciate it.
And one thing that I'll kind of report that Fred said at the meeting. So, the last meeting where they were like, okay, yes, we will turn it on, even though they had already decided that they would have it there. Fred said, look, kind of to your point, it's like, this is a new thing. In the past, when we were installing things that people were used to, like say a no parking sign or no parking 2 hours after a snow emergency or whatever, whatever those like public, things that go in the public right away. Yes, you want to notify the homeowner, but it's basically a task for the borough staff to do that. And so they were really like, it was just like an experimental, it was what do you call it? It was like a trial. Yeah, it was a trial run. It was a pilot. It was like a trial run where they were like, okay, legally we can put anything that's public infrastructure in the right of way. Yes, we plan to notify the homeowner. Whoops, the electrician showed up before the homeowner was notified twice. Both unheard of, but all that kind of process. So what Fred said was like, look, usually for this category of thing, we don't have to have a whole public discussion and a whole public, totally transparent process because it's part of the daily operations of a local government. However, with anything new, including future EV chargers or anything that's like novel, we are going to have a process that involves public awareness, campaign, input, discussion, recognizing that, as with the charger, it can only go next to a pole, it can only be certain poles, it can't be within X number of feet from a corner, it can't be within X number of feet from the driveway. There's all these technical conditions that make it so that like on the south side, there's only 2 actual spots that work, but just having a process so that people don't feel blindsided. So, and I think all the council members and everyone in the audience is like, yes, it's a new kind of thing and we need to have a new kind of process, even though the staff has been thinking like, it's infrastructure. We already have a process and it doesn't require all this public stuff, but we will have that. But that's what he said. We'll have.
Frankly, I've done a lot of monitoring projects and such where, you have what it looks like a pod sitting out in the middle of nowhere and people hate it just because it's new and it's not naturally there. And after you show the success in this case, it's something that is doing good. And so you just communicate that. And then that becomes part of the report that just says, everything starts, it's a little rough to get it started. And look at what we have here and then put it in terms of how many cars you're taking off. Something like that, something that people can visualize or sink their teeth into. And the word gets out. It's just that startup period, and the beauty is that people involved were so good at getting the grant model. So it really was not a huge investment. So this is a beautiful project to follow and data are looking good.
So will part of the recommendations be like community communication with the public about where they'll be, but then also will part of the recommendation be like, all right, if there's this many uses, then we need another one. Do you know what I mean? Like
I think so, yeah.
Like how many electric vehicles are in the borough or how many, like
the
need, like it's getting maxed out.
It's growing, it's getting maxed out. Yeah, no, exactly that.
Sometimes people are like, all right, if you can handle 30, we're not going to get new ones until everybody's on 35. Or sometimes they'll say, all right, we're getting a new one when everybody's capped out at 28 because there's room to grow. So like,
right. I think that's we make the recommendation. I mean, the council decides, like we just, but we could recommend, I think, like looking at what other places are doing. I mean, it is cutting edge, so no one's like totally figured it out yet.
Yeah, and there are some good reports. There was one from the Joe shared from New York, I thought it was. Brooklyn, I think it was. Had a lot of good data in there about what you should be looking at and usage and all those sorts of things. But it's kind of hard to measure how much are really being used between the time they're actually on the charger and the time they're actually charging.
Well, I think in terms of
because always show in the data we have session starts, session ends.
But on the meter, the time that's on there, I'll see 3.5 hours. Is that actual charge time?
I think it's charge because you get a notice and they're like, your session has ended. And we're like, oh, better go pick up the car now.
Yeah.
If
But
we're
then-
lucky.
Yeah.
But looking at some of the data, there were cars there that were on there for 18 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
That's something
So,
that-
and
That's
Yeah, charge
the
to-
parking, that's the meter maid's job.
that's the,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't, I don't know, so do you have a problem on yours?
Yeah.
People just sit and they don't pick it
All
up?
weekend.
And
They park on it.
they plug it in,
Plug it in, it's
And then they-
sticking out.
go off to the
Yeah,
shower.
and they're always, Lexus from out of state.
Interesting.
Travel, visitors.
Right, like someone's,
Just
yeah,
visiting,
relatives.
yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of thing if you wanted to, you put something under the, hey, I need to
Thought about
charge,
that,
yeah.
Then I don't have a charge.
Well, there really should be someone looking at me. Technically.
I think it's the meter maid thing. I think
Really should be looking.
I think the first thing has been like the meter maid, maid has been like looking to make sure that people who are not EVs are not parking in those spots. That's been like the first thing. And then like giving those tickets to like, hey, you gotta be an EV. And I think, I think the public, I mean, this was the other part of it is like, there's the recommendations, but then there's also that like, there's data, but then there's also who's the squeaky wheel. And so for a while, for months, the only squeaky wheels were people who were opposed to it. And then finally, through like a lot of requests, the people who, they were getting so irritated because they were like, when is this damn charger going to get turned on? Like I bought my vehicle, I need a place to charge. And so then they started showing up to the meetings because we were like, hey, there's a meeting, like this is where you can, and so it was interesting because they were actually, it was like me, but they were, some in person, some there, and they were like, some people are being very unneighborly and not letting the charger get on, but we have this car and, I need to get to work. And so it was just a very different dynamic than just a few people coming up and saying down with the chargers and that was it. So it's not data driven, but it is partly how.
Well, in this case, the new parking regulations kind of, hit this point is that if you have somebody that's staying, and if you have a Lexus that's from out of state, they're supposed to be registered.
Ooh, good.
So that is a catch-all, maybe. First, that hasn't changed their tags yet, but, yeah. Hopefully that, you can be slightly belligerent and leave a notice on the car.
Yes. Really. Yeah.
You heard it at the EAC.
Yeah.
They told me to do it.
But we're the heart of the main line, so we do things with a smile.
I know there's like resistance to this like throughout the industry, but does anybody know like the automotive industry target for converting to electric vehicle?
You don't
The
need
overall target, I mean,
Yeah, like
No.
Home Depot is like 85% of our mowers are going to be battery operated.
Yeah.
Like they have a target goal. So it's the like this Ford or is it
Yeah,
other
each company has its
Because,
own,
like
yeah.
how you do the meters is probably gonna
Oh, I
go
mean,
along with
presumably it's just gonna.
the bigger car trend.
Well, and I think that's been the argument, like, if you're not a planner, you're just like, well, I have a gas SUV, so why does that, why do I need this everything in front of my house? And it's like, well, in New Jersey, in 10 years, there's supposed to be all electric sales. So presumably, so it's just like the planning for the future versus like what I personally have. But that's, the research is there. Like Ford said this and Volkswagen said that and Volvo said that,
The trend, you can't pay attention to the seasonal trends at all. The most recent reports say that the majority of the new models of EVs are expensive. And they're the higher end range, so people can't afford it during this period where you can't get a loan. And so the average person is not buying them. So the sales forecast is down. However, if interest rates are coming, so it's a whole economic.
Very all the
Yes.
issues of the EAC.
And instead of, but
yeah.
but the market, remember when they first came out, you had the Bolts and the smaller cars.
The leaves.
And they were economical, the average person might be able to purchase one. It's shifted more to an exclusive crowd.
But it's not.
But it's gonna
not
change,
strict.
it's too early. it varies in every country too. It's not standardized. I've been trying to follow, read the tea leaves, and it's very difficult.
Well, and if each time a new state comes out and says like, oh, well, you know, by whatever year, X percent of the cars or 100% of the new cars sold have to be, you know, it just, yeah, it's very.
And then there's gonna be an election.
Yeah. So, I think, I mean, I can imagine with this report, I think it looks great. I could imagine for any of it, like showing it to some of the members of the, or Jean or something, the chair of the committee. And then she may be like, oh, what does this mean? Can you explain that more? Could you fill in that more? And then we kind of go back,
Yeah,
you know.
I think it could put some more, there needs to be verbiage around there instead of just charts and stuff like that, so. Anybody's welcome to throw in any comments that they have. But I'll keep looking at it as well and try to get some more down here. Things that make sense, because we're reading things here that talk about the utilization rate of these things, and these charges, these other reports.
Right. And that was one question we had, you know, that we raised, which is like, do we have a record both of the active charging time and the amount of time that someone is just sitting there? Because I'm not,
That's not on there.
my suspicion is that Flo may not know that your car is still there after the charging stops.
Well, they must know, I mean, they must, when they plug in and unplug, I guess, because they have said start time and end time.
I'm gonna go over.
Right, but the end time, yeah, I mean, it's just the question, I guess, is the end
Yeah,
time. Do they distinguish between like active electricity? Because the car, you know, the app on, you know, that you get will say you completed your charging at X time.
Are we committed to Flow, or do we have a specific vendor that we're going to stick with?
Not
Is there
necessarily.
an economic incentive? Because a lot of times if you commit to buy X number of units from a company, if we're enough of,
Yeah.
not just a dot and.
I think there was some kind of deal with this pilot. Yeah, I think there was some kind of deal with this pilot, but I don't think, we're not like I don't think anyone is contemplating like a big public EV charging expansion like at the moment. So, but I think it's.
They do appreciate backlog, that people would continue with their product like any vendor. Because they have to project what their sales are gonna be year, the next 5 years, to know that you'd be interested.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Just a thought, and then you leave that to the bean counters.
Yeah.
But.
I think we would need the year's data to show the pressure on it for them to kind of become a priority again. I don't know. Or a new grant would have to come up where everyone's like, we could get all this money, and it's an easy grant proposal. Let's just do it. I think one or the other. But I think people are kind of like burned out on, like in the government, are burned out.
Right. All right, so that's the EV charger update. So we'll just keep working on that. Once again, they want the report in April, so we still have a little bit of time to work on that. So we can review that in upcoming meetings. 2:30 Harrison, Rob, is there anything you want to share on that? I know you're at the meeting.
Yeah, I was gonna put together a memo and then I just held back and didn't notes because I attended the meeting on Monday. And so it was they're well attended and it actually ended almost on time. So it was not the last one. So the development team came in with a whole new set of drawings. And it was impressive, the amount of work that they had done. They had added a lot of three-dimensional aspect, different textures, colors, things that were more attractive. It didn't look more like Northern Liberties or something along that line. And I don't mean that in a negative pejorative
Of course not.
way, but so the one thing was listening to everything, I noticed that the general tenor of the meeting was to get acceptance for a conditional use permit. and that everybody was checking off code items, and that the general questions from the audience were about, do you accept this presentation, the architecture? That was, the street view, et cetera. And it was not on green or sustainable elements. So,
Did they mention that they're still committed to the no gas hookups? That was the
just
main.
passing. Just
Okay, because
passing.
that was the main thing that they had
Right.
committed to. Yeah.
But it was definitely not the intent of this meeting. So I did ask about a vegetative wall, because originally I brought up, I added a question in the last meeting about the south side of the building, which is very stark, but it's the sunny side, and it's next to the parking lot. And I thought that they would, afterwards I spoke to a couple of people from the development team. They said, we'll look into it. And so this new presentation had like murals on that side and in the breezeway. But there was no vegetative break on the building. After the meeting, I was approached and I was told that it's very expensive. So, so what I also asked about the green roof and stormwater collection, et cetera, in the green roof. And that's, expensive. So these are elements that would go into a memo. But I had a couple people from, they're on a number of other committees, and they said, and I don't remember the names right now, it's written in my notes, but they were interested in, well, how could our group, it'd be something like a NICE, be involved in maybe maintaining or helping to develop a vegetated wall or equivalent. It's a private development, but there are creative ways of creating a vegetative barrier that doesn't attach necessarily to the structural wall. It could be independent and actually maybe even on borough property. So it'd be adjacent to. There are creative ways of doing this. So it might be one of these things where, we're creating a list of, would you do this? Would you do that? 3 or 4 items. And there's a way to be cooperative in developing, well, if you will do this, we will take care of this. So you break up that task into something that the borough might be able to assist in planning and or maintain. And so I need to think about this more and talk to EAC members. But it could be a cooperative thing because, vegetative wall you have to maintain. Establishing it can be difficult. You have to choose what type of plants, or if you have vines, which are easier. And then who's going to do the maintenance as far as water replacement, et cetera. And so developer doesn't necessarily have that expertise. They could do it, or there are firms that do it independently. It is expensive, but maybe we have some resources that could be involved. It could be a cooperative arrangement that benefits the borough from what we are seeking for this development and what the developer would be able to allow. Sometimes we don't have much say, but most developers have a development fund that is meant to be used for community improvement, et cetera. thinks that they'll go the extra, football analogy, the extra 10 yards to achieve, because they're doing a lot of work in the borough. And just like our plans, it's a new project, and we collect data from it, and it's useful for us as well. So it's a partnership.
Yeah. Is there a sense of what the next steps is in part or the process of the planning commission?
Really, it's the conditional use approvals, and since the developer has done so much in their architectural drafts, and it's being favorably accepted, at least that's my interpretation from the last meeting. I think it's going to move fairly quickly.
Yeah. It doesn't seem, I mean, the plans, last time the plans were available for the last meeting, they don't seem to be out here for the public. Do you know?
I think it takes a few days to put them up.
Okay.
They have to decide what they're going to.
I thought the other one was available before the meeting. Remember the other meeting a couple weeks ago?
Yeah.
I was just checking some of the links that go to that meeting.
There are a lot of revisions. The mansard roof is reduced, the color, the palette, three-dimensionality. It looks more like townhouses now than it did before, rather than like I called it brutalist style, some of it.
It's not the current. This is not current.
That's old. Yeah.
Which one's that? Is that the one that had the fire one?
With the large, mansard.
So the new one looks different? You're
It's
saying?
different, right? It's vastly improved. They changed the shapes of the windows. There's all, unfortunately with architecture, you get, everybody has an opinion.
Oh, yes.
The shape of this window, it looks, I don't like the shape of windows.
It's so funny, because when they showed it last time, I was like, oh, I said to whoever was there, I hate mansard roofs, and then one of the people, one of the commission, planning commission was like, I hate mansard roofs, and another one on the commission was like, I love mansard roofs.
You're never gonna get it.
A slight aside, why mansard roofs exist?
Is it like snow in Belgium, or no?
It was a tax incentive because since it had a roof side on it, it was not taxed. It was not considered an occupied floor. So everybody started doing mansard roofs.
Oh, boy.
So that's the one of the origins of it.
Now, I have a question, if I may. How does a green roof get maintained?
I was just starting to dig into some data. My question is, who has the best
Exactly.
and so I'm digging into that, but I know that I bet that Laura Marion had some information because they looked at it. Jesse may have some knowledge of the data. I just know from some other cities. And pull the data, but I want somebody that's representative here. So I can't give you real numbers, but it's not inexpensive. Once it's established, and if you're in a climate that is not prone to extremes,
Where's that?
yeah,
That's not Norbert.
yeah. If you're not in Texas, it's a little easier. But it is a budget item for operations. But I can't give you an exact number. I don't know the square feet oriented.
Do you have any funds to go with?
Yeah, but a vegetative wall really can be done relatively inexpensively if you create its attachment to the building or it's freestanding next to the building. And it can be done in a number of ways. So I wanted to incorporate that into what is introduced on that. So, but I'd like to put it together in the next day so that we could throw something on the council Friday. So
Oh, that's common.
And I just need to know what elements, everybody agrees on that we want to include in this memo. Because we can shoot for the moon in many things, but I know that the gas hookups,
That was a good, yeah.
the roof versus the parking lot, the concerns about the parking lot because of
You're out here?
excavating and everything.
There's no concession as far as, I think I have to go underground, that's none of that staying in place.
That was a hazardous, waste, project. So, people don't like to break the pavement later, and go, it's warranty. So I can understand that.
So we put together a memo that.
Yeah. So let's roll and I'll distribute it to everybody. Jesse, do you know, has Haverford put on a green room?
The college?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a couple.
So do you have some operational data, about the costs, operational cost and maintenance, issues?
I can put you in touch. I mean, I've heard the spiel with super low maintenance, the version we did.
Okay. That's good. I was just saying that, that we were sort of an asterisk in the meeting as far as everybody was, the eye candy was the architectural detail.
Mm-hmm.
And the new plans are actually quite nice. It's quite an improvement from shown.
It's great.
So, when I was told that it was, the vegetated wall was too expensive.
Yeah.
So we'll see what we can do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, follow up with me an email. I'm happy to get some local anecdotal data.
Yeah, I don't know how many features we're really looking for in that project, really, didn't know electrical hookups was a big one.
Yeah.
And that's still in there, I mean, that's still,
And my thought is they're developing so many things in the borough.
I mean,
It can be, I have to go bold,
okay, all right.
but, there are a lot of opportunities here because they don't have to run the borough and that. Whether there are cooperative elements where the borough can say, well, we can help out with maintenance of, let's say, a vegetative wall or something, or put something into it, or ideas, or versus, having them go along.
Right.
They might be more receptive. And that's probably it.
Awesome, sounds good. Well, I look forward to seeing the plans when they're actually published. Yeah, they are published. So,
That was discussed and supposedly we will appear.
okay.
So,
Yeah. The next thing on the agenda, we had the green building bonus memo to planning commission, which I was supposed to be working on, and I have been working on that, so I will continue to work on that.
Fantastic.
And I will get that. I have an outline on that. I actually put something in the folder, the EAC folder on the Google Drive.
Great.
It says version 2. It's just a conditional use that they had in the original memo that they had. We just expanded it a little bit. You get some input from that.
Do you want eyes on it yet, or you want to let us know?
Yeah, you can start. Yeah, please take a look at it. If anybody has an opportunity to take a look at it.
is that in the folder?
It should be. Once again, I'm working in Google Drive, so it could be anywhere. Do you have access to that, Jesse?
Trying to locate it now.
We'll see if. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, talk about that. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. Have a good night. I had something called Green Building Bonus version 2.
Search for that
Does anybody see that?
green building bonus.
Even any luck chatting?
I lost my connection.
Okay.
Rebuilding bonus memo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got,
You have one that says version 2.
I got one from, I see in July 2022.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay,
Which I never seen the same, but
so I come my way around this thing.
when you find it, why don't you just shoot us an email with a link and.
If I find it. If I find it.
I still run this.
Let's see. Okay, well, we'll follow that, but we're kind of towards the end of it here at the EAC, at the agenda. So what else we had? Rebid bonus, check on borough council committee agendas. Anybody? I know, I guess Rob was checking in on those folks. Nothing there. Last public comment. Don't think we have anybody from the public. Well, you're like adjunct. You're like adjunct. I mean, please speak up if you have something to say. You're an adjunct member.
I just have like a question, like, I got the email from, the people planning our birthday, and is the EAC gonna have a table at our birthday?
It's our plan to have something at our birthday, and I think we were trying to do something in conjunction with Jeff Eldon.
Okay.
And I he wanted to show off a lot of the electric equipment that.
I should definitely like brag about all the things that you've gotten done so far and like let them know what you're working on, because you guys have gotten a lot accomplished in a relatively, government work in a short amount of time, you know?
Well, that's always an interesting question, what we do for a table at our birthday. We always kind of struggle on what to do about that. So.
Right, and make it interactive or engaging.
It's fun. So maybe having people with power tools might be fun. Jeff said power tools, battery active power tools.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that'll be a big part of it. Anything else that we want to?
If it's a brag, maybe we want to do. We could get some photos and just have your EAC at work kind of thing with just visuals of different projects that we've touched.
And Jesse, we are working on putting together a presentation that's supposed to go to this public health and safety and chargers. So I started a PowerPoint, which has a lot of the data. We pull that and that's I think lots of so we're working on that. So whatever that looks like in its final form, if we want to put all that in there, we certainly present that.
Yeah. Infographics are cool.
May 4th, is that the right date?
That's a good question.
That's a great question.
Is there something?
Yes, May 4th.
That's a big Star Wars thing.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
May 4th.
Got some sort of Star Wars tie-in technology.
What is it? May 4th?
May the 4th be with you.
Oh.
Each
That's good. Okay. Right. Okay. And then with that, anybody else have anything else they want to chat about, talk about? Interject.
I can talk all night.
Go right ahead, talk away.
Thank you all.
Yeah, John, thank you very much for thank you guys so much. And again, just keep us posted or reach out for help, whichever.
You know, anybody that still loves that issue, send them our way.
Okay.
Bye.
Yeah, fine.
See you soon, Don. Bye.
Good night, Tom.